So my name's Geraint Jones, and I'm going to be talking to you about what Simone was talking about in the kind of quantitative data rather than quantitative analysis, and how we can get hold of all this, there's all this lovely data floating out there in the world that we can use to gain behavioral insights. So, first, no, it's okay. Before I start, who am I? My name's Geraint. At the moment, I work for the Home Office in the Agile digital teams there. I'm a user experience specialist. And I think there might be some people here from Government Digital Service who are part of the the Cabinet Office, and there's this new wave in government to basically make stuff that's not shit. So there's this new, historically things the governments make are crap because, well, it's a big bureaucracy, there's loads of issues, and ultimately your customers have no choice. They kind of have to go to you, they don't really have an option. But there's now, basically you can't put anything online now unless you meet these GDS principles, which the number one is it has to be based on user needs, which is really cool. It causes some issues for the Home Office because traditionally, obviously, that's not the way anything's ever been done. But it means that now we're actually creating stuff that is actually quite good, which shocked everyone, quite frankly, which is really cool. So I'm not a data scientist, I'm a user experience person. And I'm practicing for the Olympics. I went to UCL as an undergrad and postgrad, did at UCLIC. I'm soon going to be going back to UCL, where I am going to be doing a PhD on, it's kind of broad at the moment, large data sets and user experience and how you can use one to kind of achieve the other. So it's a bit broad at the moment, but it's going to be really fun. And I worked at Amberlight in between, and also at a startup called Chirp, called Amber Systems, which made an app called Chirp, which was really interesting experience and absolutely awesome, and gave us and that's where I first got kind of interested in looking at like large data and stuff, because there I had access to this kind of these large data sets and things and connections between people and stuff. So what is this talk going to be about? I hear you ask. So I'm going to be talking about there's been this thing, I say recently, last couple of years, people talk about big data, and it's kind of about how there's now, more than ever before, you can gather information about people, lots and lots of information, like huge data sets. We're talking millions and millions and millions of data points. And Google do it, like Amazon do it, all these people do it. And they use this data primarily to find out about what people do, people's behaviors. And they do that so they can sell more adverts, obviously. And people like the NSA and GCHQ do it so they can sift through your emails and work out if you're going to be blowing stuff up. I think that it's very interesting that as user experience professionals, we are mostly interested in what people do. And there's this huge body of data, all this crap out there, that I don't think we take advantage of enough. So today I'm going to be talking about what some of the possibilities are with this data, and also about kind of how we can get our hands on it, because let's face it, we don't have the time, resource, or often the access to these data sets, even within our own organizations sometimes. I mean, we're quite fortunate in the Home Office that we have like Google Analytics built into everything that we do now, but kind of a lot of the stuff you go back to and you try and find analytics and it's like, interesting. So a lot of the time you don't have access to kind of proper data sources, but there's so much stuff out there. Like, I'm going to be talking a lot about Twitter because people basically are telling you about themselves, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to start by, basically I'm going to talk about a couple of different techniques that are used in like this big data kind of sphere. The kind of things that you can do, just as an example, and also try and bring it back to kind of a concrete thing that as user experience people we can do with that. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is clustering. Now, cluster analysis is a really big deal in like big data kind of arena, because what it lets you do is find out if this group of people are like this group of people, or if all of these random attributes, you shove them together into a big bag, and you go, oh, okay, like this is like this. And this is used for all kinds of interesting things. There's a guy from Google called Edwin Chen. Can we go down? Awesome. Doesn't work. So, if this screen was a little bit larger, what you'd see is this says fast food. And this is from this guy from Google, Edwin Chen, who's got a really awesome blog. You should read it. It's all about like analyzing massive data sets to find out cool stuff. Does that go down? That doesn't go down. So this is a visualization of McDonald's foods. So he, I think Edwin Chen is a he. I don't actually know that. I'm assuming based on the name. He or she took the McDonald's nutrition information from the menus in America, took each of the things. So each of these is like a different, carbohydrates, fat percentage, this kind of thing. Turned them into normalized scores. So you have like everything's based around the middle. So you can say that something is less fatty than something else or more fatty than something else. Put them into actually quite a clever algorithm that I'm not going to talk about because it's way too complicated and it makes my brain melt, to make it develop these clusters of stuff. So this is like unsupervised. The machine just does this without you knowing. So what he discovered was that there are 11 different clusters in McDonald's menus in America. One of them is burger-like items, cheeseburgers, sausage McGriddles. I'm not sure what that is, sounds disgusting. But what you can see is that, well, it's okay, you can go sauces, that's fine. What you can see is based on these different kind of attributes, which are purely nutritional information, these clusters just came out of the data. So stuff that we as humans would be able to look at and say, okay, these are all fatty burgery type things, came out as this is cluster number 3. And when you look at it, you can say, cluster number 3 is these fatty burgery type things. And he or she also discovered a number of sauce clusters, which is weird. There's 3 different clusters of sauces, creamy sauces, normal sauces, all kinds of other sauces. And you can see that the signature of the sauces is different, just visually. You can see they all kind of look like this, instead of all kind of looking like the burgery things. So why should we care? Why should we give a shit as user experience people? Personas. What are personas, except a pile of shit normally, except for being clusters of traits? So say you've got a massive bag of trait information, such as you might get from spidering people's Twitter profiles. You can look at their number of followers, the number of posts, the number of follows, and reaches. This is fake data, by the way, as you might realize this is balsamic. But you could plug that stuff in to one of these clustering models and come out with cluster number 1. And when you look at cluster number 1, you go, wow, they've got loads of followers. They don't have as many posts as most people, because it's down on the negative side. Or as many they don't follow as many people, but they get retweeted a bucket load. These people are mavens. And you can do that without actually having any data on your users. You can look at who follows you on Twitter, say you're Everything Everywhere, say you're Vodafone. You can look at who follows you, and you can do this analysis. You can cluster them according to different factors, different numeric factors. This is another type of cluster analysis. Doesn't look very pretty, does it? This is called a agglomerative hierarchical cluster analysis. And this is kind of cool because a lot of cluster analysis requires you to know the number of clusters you want in advance. So you say, I want 7 clusters. Give me 7 clusters. But that's kind of bullshit because that's not how the real world works. So the first one I showed you, the Edwin Chen one, is a really clever algorithm that actually you can throw as many things as you want and it tells you how many clusters you have. The one that everyone uses, called K-means, it doesn't do that. You have to use some clever stuff to work it out. This is of UXPA UK followers. So I spidered the biographies of people who follow UXPA UK and extracted a term document. Basically, took all of the words that people use to describe themselves and then looked at the ones that were in each person's thing. So say you said designer in your bio, it says, okay, one person has, this is cutting out all the shit like ands and ors and all the like, you know, low frequency words like fishing. And actually this is 97% sparse, which means the vast majority of stuff got booted out. And you end up with like this kind of, you can see that we've got people who say designers, people over here who've got user and experience, obviously a cluster, a bit of a failure there, really, they should just be one word. And what's interesting as well is you've got design, so you can also do things like, you could say design and designer are the same thing, really. But you end up with user experience, designer, consultant, London Usability Web Digital, which is quite interesting. So you've got people who describe themselves as being user experience people who are designers, and consultants who are usability and web. Nothing to do with user experience or design, which is interesting. Which is actually a bit of a fallacy because everyone in this room is incredibly similar. Well, if you are on Twitter and you follow UXPA UK. So these clusters are very close to each other. So in reality, you're really all just one big lump, sorry. And this is quite an old snapshot of tweets from the of hashtag UXPA UK. People who've sent stuff to @UXPA UK. And we've got a cluster over here, which was like something to do with research, games and research, something to do with jobs, another event. Oh, actually, it's the same event. Oh no, kind of different. And then you can see that there's actually individual users rock up as well. So there's people who've been heavily mentioned with regard to these clusters. Something to do with, I don't know what that is. And this one, this massive one over here, pub. Pub, quiz, event, see you tonight, all this kind of stuff. Last night, great, thanks. So, now, obviously you can't really draw any conclusions from that, but, so cluster analysis is really fascinating. You need to take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt because you can basically throw these cluster analysis algorithms at anything and come up with totally meaningless clusters. If you want to do cluster analysis stuff, you should, the tools that you will need, and I'm going to be giving you links, not today because I forgot to, but I will get Shweta to tweet the link to all the links for this talk. There's a tool called R, which is really hardcore stats thing, which basically everyone uses. It's really difficult to use, but there's a really good tutorial on quickr.com, which basically tells you how to do cluster analysis. And it's worth diving into if you're interested in... Sorry. Okay.
7 minutes.
So if you're interested in diving a bit deeper, you should install R and play with it. If you, quite frankly, don't have the time, you can play with cluster analysis. There is a JavaScript library called I forget, but the link will be in the things, which has like a demo page where you can you can just type information in or paste it in from a spreadsheet, and it'll do you a hierarchical agglomerative cluster dendrogram, and also k-means and stuff, which is quite nice. And you can take the stuff from that and put it into a presentation after tarting it up and making it not look shit. So now I'm going to talk very briefly about network graphs. These are very cool. These are like, this is graph not just in the sense of what you visually see, but in the sense of the information structure. So a graph is made up of nodes and edges. Nodes are like, in Twitter, for instance, a person could be a node, and their connection with someone else could be an edge. So you'd have like a person, oh, and here's a network graph. Not Twitter this time. This is pretty cool. This is by Renee DeResta, who I know is a woman, I think. And her blog is also really cool. Definitely worth looking at. And this is based on open government data. Now, the UK is really good for open government data, or we're supposed to be anyway. There's a website called data.gov.uk, which has shit tons of open data on it. Go on it, play with it. It's pretty cool. I don't know how useful that's going to be to anyone in this room, unless there is anyone here from GDS, but it is actually like fascinating. So the reason I pulled this one up is that this is quite a simple diagram, and what this shows is judges in the US, and the data set is donations to judges. In the US, for some reason, judges are allowed to take donations, but they have to declare them. And this just sits there. No one ever looks at it because it's just a big wall of numbers. But you look at it, these red dots are judges, These blue dots are donors. A connection is a donation to a judge. There is one corrupt sod right there. Also there, this is weird. This is one guy who bribes a lot of judges. And here you can see this whole network of connected judges, donors. You know, you can just see politics going on right here. And what's interesting is there's all these separate ones as well, and you can look at those and go, that's kind of interesting. And this is a very simple example in the sense that it's literally just one thing you're encoding. But if you looked at this as data, just a big wall of data, you wouldn't know that this guy's a fucking scheming bastard. But look at this guy. It's like I've got a leap motion. It's got like this. So network graphs are absolutely fascinating. They go way deeper than that. If you want to play with them, there's a tool called Gephi, which is free, and you plug your kind of network stuff into it, and it gives you nice like layouts and stuff. It's a bit technical, but there's quite good tutorials for it. And what I would recommend is trying to plug kind of Twitter network data in, because again, it's public. There's a really good tool called Tags, T-A-G-S, which is literally a spreadsheet template you copy into Google Docs, and you put in like a hashtag or an @ or whatever, and it just starts archiving everything that people tweet about that. And then you can just like export it, stick it into Gephi, and get like really cool like network diagrams, which you could follow your product. You could follow your okay. So you could follow your product, you could follow your thing, you could look at it and see all the connections between people. It's kind of cool. Also means that you can see if your users are massively connected kind of mavens, you know, they've got loads of followers, you know, or if they're consumers and they've just got like, they follow shit tons of people and do nothing. Don't know why you'd do that, but that is quite, it's, you know, you can find stuff out basically, and it's not that hard, and it makes a pretty picture. So, we're now on to geodata. Now everyone loves geodata because you stick it on a map and people go, oh, I understand this. And this is very much like the kind of just grabbing data, stick it on. I love this. This is Google flu trends. Google worked out that they can predict they can work out flu incidents by what people search for. And this is a map on there, just overview of Russia, flu, lots of flu, from people's search terms. And this is known to be pretty damn accurate, better than lots of other measures. And you can delve really deep on this. You can look in the states and like which state. And the reason I really like this as well is that it's based on, they don't go and ask people, do you have the flu? They don't go to hospitals and like, did you have lots of flu intake? They know because of what people are searching for. If you have a product that people are searching in, if you have analytics on your web app, you are collecting the kind of data that you can just chuck together and go, people in Russia love our app. That's a really basic thing, but you can look at, shit, no one in China uses our app, why is that? And then you go on the Chinese app store and there's 10 million apps that already do what you do in Chinese. You think, maybe we should localize. But it's, as user experience professionals, we shouldn't just be doing usability tests and stuff. We've got a mandate to go out and grab all the data we can and find stuff out. So this is cool. This is Geo as well. This is state stereotypes. This is also Renee DeResta. She went on my favorite data mining tool, Google Autocomplete. Google Auto Suggestions. I have run over here. Hello. Oh my God, there's loads of you. Google Auto Suggestions. You all know, you've tried it. You type something in, and it comes up with something hilarious. Why are Welshmen stupid? Thanks very much. but what Renee DeResta did is she thought she would mine this to look at people's stereotypes. So for every state in the US, she typed in why, I can't remember this, why are Floridians so, or why is Florida so, or something like that. And based on the top 4 hits she got out, she got stereotype map of the United States. These ones on the left are extracted from her stereotypes. The ones on the right are actual statistical data. As you can see, states that people said, why is blah blah so cheap? Which is the green one. Come out with a low cost of living in the real stats. statistics in the descriptive statistics sense, not the analytic statistics sense. And the expensive ones, bright red, also bright red, which is fascinating. By looking at people's stereotypes as recorded by a search tool, you can get at the underlying data. And the same for the other one. This is UXPA UK Twitter followers. As you can see, this is extracted from their Twitter bios again, or their Twitter profiles again. Lots of people in the UK, but loads of people in the US, a couple of people all over, you know, a couple of South Africans. Obviously, there's loads more people than this, they just didn't fit on the map. And there's a tool called Batch Geo that basically you take your shittily formatted, awful like location, chuck it in as a spreadsheet, and it just does this for you. It's awesome. Batch Geo. It is cool because Twitter location data is fucking messy. So, finally, and very quickly, sorry, I realized I've gone way over what I was going to do. Text mining. Text mining's awesome. This, I think Simone was talking about earlier. Basically, you're just looking at the frequency of stuff and going, that's interesting. So this is Rough Sex, as recorded by OK Trends, which is the blog of OkCupid, dating site. Absolutely fascinating, you should go on it. They have just a whole blog about weird shit about people. And they have essays that people write about themselves, personal essays. They also have questions, lots of questions. So they can say, who says I like rough sex? Well, for females, people with lots of piercings, you know, lots of grammar. Basically, your ridiculous, cynical punks with tattoos are having lots of, or want to have lots of rough sex. On the other hand, if you like gardening in England and church and boat and you have a lot of challenges, you have to rise to challenges. Or actually, it doesn't even say rise to challenges, it's challenges. I'd love to know what the context around that is. But yeah, you like gentle sex. So, you know, and imagine you could just do this for your users, couldn't you? I've got a bunch of users that log in 400 times a week, because I'm amazing. I've also got the vast majority of users who log in like once. And you can just do this. The people who log in like once a week are all like gardening in England. Everyone else is having rough sex, that's why they're logging in so much. Maybe it's the other way around. Depends on your app, I suppose. But, so this is something similar I did for UXPA UK Twitter followers. So you can see that people who, this is by mining all the biographies of people who follow UXPA UK on Twitter. As you can see, you all like UX, what a surprise. We've also got designer, design, experience, all this kind of stuff. What's interesting is people, way down here, well, we've got users up there, we don't actually care about people very much. And this is really messy at the moment. Like, you've got all this crap, which is like obviously websites and stuff, and you can do a lot more to clean this up, but this is an example of, like, you can just follow your brand and see this, or follow your competitor's brand and see the difference, that kind of thing. So I was going to go a bit more in depth in how you actually do text mining and stuff, but I think I'm pretty much out of time, so I think we'll just skip on to the next section. Okay, we can just go through it. Basically, there's all this stuff about getting big corpuses of text, which is a big chunk of lots of documents. You've got to get hold of it somehow. Okay. A note of caution. So, much as Simone was saying earlier, you can look at numbers and find out any bloody thing, and especially if you're delving into all these, like, loads of different, like, basically you're fishing when you do this stuff. This is from Google Ngrams, which also is really cool. It's like a big text analysis of all the books ever that they've scanned in. Well, this is an inverse correlation between user experience and chutney. So, obviously, you know, in the last 8 years, user experience has gone up massively. Like, if you look at this on the actual graph of incident, it's huge. And, you know, obviously, the more user experience people there are, the less chutney gets eaten. So, as Simone was saying earlier, you need to be careful with this. This was going to be a slide with loads of the tools that I've talked about and a few that I forgot to talk about on this with links, but I didn't actually get around to it. So, I'm going to put all the links on a big page and then get the UXPA UK account to tweet it, so you don't actually have to follow me. There's one thing that I want to show, if I can go, if I have time. Do I have time? So what I wanted to do was show, oh my god, what I wanted to do was to kind of give you guys some concrete tools to just do stuff and put in a PowerPoint. But what I discovered was actually there's not a lot out there to do that unless you are like prepared to delve into R and go like nuts. And the New York Times spends like ages creating these like amazing visualizations. So I made something foolish, probably foolishly, to make. Oh, there's no internet. Oh, maybe. I just can't type. So, oh dear. This is what happens when you don't have time to buy a proper SSL certificate. Oh no!
You're putting a space in your username.
Yeah, it has one. Oh no. Possibly. So, this probably won't work now that I showed you this. I made this just for this talk, which is why it is so rubbish. But basically, you can't, all this stuff about Twitter that I was like, you have to get all this, like it's all public, you can all get it. You can't anymore. They've completely gone like, you have to authenticate with their API. So I made this so that people can get into it without having to start a developer account and all this crap. It's okay. So we're going to look at
That's a wrong spelling?
oh, I don't want to see what that was.
That's also the wrong spelling.
Oh no!
UXPA.
What is it? UX?
UK then.
Success. So, there's like loads of, they have 25,250 followers, which is obscene, which takes a very long time to think of. This is only taking the first 1,000, and this screen is tiny, so it kind of like blams in. But as you can see, you know, this is all of you lot, if you follow. Like, this is what your bios say about UXPA UK. So you could also take a look at, let's see, what's the human factors people? Who knows? Anyone got an interesting, who has a username they'd like to submit to? IXDA?
Miley Cyrus.
We don't want to see that. Actually, Miley Cyrus would be interesting because what I've noticed is big celebrities and stuff, you get a shitload of people who say love, life, fan, and follow. Not sure what's going on here, but that's quite interesting. That the less specialized you go, the more you see the word love. So, no nipples. Well, I haven't searched the ones that you go on, Mark. Quite frankly. So you can see that the IXDA designer is their top one rather than UX. Bit of a swip around, quite interesting. So I'm just going to finish by saying that there's loads of really interesting stuff that you can find out by doing this kind of data mining. You need to be careful because you can learn stuff that doesn't really exist. There's not a lot of tools out there to just do that you can plug into a presentation at the moment. But as part of what I'm quite interested in doing is looking at how we can build tools that the UX community can use to take advantage of all this data that's just floating around there. So if you do want to try that thing out, it'll be in the links. If you do have kind of any feedback or thoughts on what tools you guys would like as a community, that would be really interesting. And you should tweet me, except that I didn't put my username up either. So I'll just get the UXPA to do that.
Sorry?
Could
Yeah, just pass on the links to me. Any questions? Wait, keep that.
Any questions? Hand.
So the obvious challenge on this is how do you stop people inferring the wrong thing? How do you stop people being journalists with the big data?
Well, you've seen the New York Times, right? You don't. They do it. Data journalism is that what you were talking about? Like, how do you stop people from making the wrong decisions based on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've shown quite clearly that with the user experience against chutney, it's very easy to draw the wrong conclusion. You get all this data, you get lovely, pretty pictures, which are really convincing. So obviously, it's our duty to make sure that we're drawing the correct conclusions and not leading people down the wrong way.
Yeah.
But how do you?
Well,
how do you make sure you're doing that? How do you stop other people not doing it?
you can't stop other people from being idiots, and you can't stop other people from being dickheads. Basically, that's life. But what you can do is look when someone shows you a word cloud and say, "Oh, I see you have this word really big. Where did you get this from?" how did you get it? It's the same methodological thing as anything, and these ultimately are diagnostic. You do it, and you go, oh, this is really interesting. We've got this cluster of people who love sauce, and this cluster of people who are women in Alabama who like shoes. And then you go and do user research. Like, it's not a replacement for doing actual research. So these are just ways for you to find stuff out. It's another data point. And ultimately, you can't stop people doing infographics. The internet is full of stupid shit infographics that mean nothing. So, sorry, just have to microphone. Sorry. No one else? Yes?
I imagine there are I imagine there are privacy issues with collecting this data. And how do you handle them?
Well, for things like Twitter bio, which are public, like these are things that people have said, this is me, and I am.
No, you hold it.
Oh, so you said what you said is that there are issues with collecting this kind of data. So all of the data that we talk about here is public, and that's kind of the point of what I'm talking about. Is you don't have to use private data. You can use stuff that you find on the internet that people have said, I want to share this with the world. I think.
Oh, we take him over there, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, the question that lady had of privacy, etc., this is public information, but how do you know it's true? I mean, it's a very big question. You can't answer that in one swoop, but lots of chutney. I could write the word chutney, and I don't care about chutney.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to write chutney enough to influence Google Ngrams. Like, you'd have to be writing 1 million books a year to bring chutney up, which I think that's a goal that we can ascribe to. I think there's a bigger issue here, which is, as you said, there are privacy issues, and it doesn't matter if this data is public. What you can do is take a big load of public data, another big public load of data, which is anonymous, and put them together and find out very disturbing things. But I think we're just going to have to live with that as we go forward.
Which one? Who should I go for? Do you have a question as well? Or did you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
To go for it.
Can you just go over the personas of the diagrams that you had? I didn't quite get what you were trying to...
I'm not sure if we've got time right now because these guys need to give a talk. But I'm happy to talk about anything that I kind of whiz through and didn't explain properly afterwards. Please feel free to come and talk to me.
We have a networking bit after that, and then we can test
Yeah.
it.
And I'm sure plenty of what I said didn't make sense. Because I was just trying to back. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.